Another paper, The Mysticism of Breath. Breath is audible and visible. And when a spiritual person, by spiritual exercises, strengthens and purifies the breath, it becomes more intelligible as a light and a sound. Life and light, in truth, are one. The breath is the life, and it is the same breath which is light. Breath, in fact, is the light of all senses. The senses of sight, smell, taste, hearing, and touch perceive all things by the light of the breath. When the breath is absent from the body with all its perfect mechanism becomes useless. It is natural, therefore, that every sense must become powerful and keen if the breath be developed and purified. The reason why the ill and weak and people physically delicate generally see visions is that the lack of flesh, fat, and blood, the veins and tubes of the body and the organs of all the senses are free and not blocked as they are in a muscular person. Therefore, naturally the senses become keen, and one perceives more than what is within the ordinary range of perception. Also, such a person, when asleep, perceives the impressions of the inner world, because during sleep the inner sense, which may be called the root of the senses, turns its back, so to speak, on the external world, and so begins to see the world within. The mystic, by the help of exercises, develops and purifies the breath. Therefore, to him, after a certain time, all things become clear in the outer and inner world. There are some who see light before them. There are some who notice colors in their view. There are also some who see forms before their sight. When they talk about it to others who cannot observe the phenomena, they are considered imaginative. People laugh at them. The Sufi, therefore, does not speak of any such experience to others. She thinks it is not their world, and they will not be able to understand unless they also rise to that sphere. There is no motive for speaking about one's experiences to others except pride. And if someone does this out of vanity, his next step will be exaggeration. If something makes anyone feel himself above others, it is natural for him to feel inclined to make it still more impressive. Besides, it is in human nature to wish to interest one's friends in one's pleasure, and if someone is pleased with something he sees, he will surely try to make it more interesting by a little added exaggeration. Therefore, there are these two dangers on the spiritual path, of which the adept must be aware before making the journey. It is for this reason that mysticism has been made a secret cult, that it may not be for everybody to play with. So Moshe speaks here of the inner appearance of the phenomena of the breath. The outer signs are the heaving of the chest, the sound of the air moving through the airways. But as we've seen, breath means more than the movement of the breath. Breath means the movement of the life field. And in fact, breath is the current that descends from the abstract sphere into the manifest and returns again. So it's a wheel, a circle, descending and ascending, linking up the visible and the invisible. And so it can be apprehended at different levels. The outermost evidence of the breath is seen in the workings of the body, but there are subtler dimensions of the same current that are seen not with the senses themselves, the eyes and the ears and so forth, but that which lights up the senses. There's a sensus communis, a common sense, which sees through the eyes and hears through the ears. It's that faculty of perception that precedes even its application through its different instruments. Its essential modality is simply perception itself. And when the doors of sensory perception is closed, its own innate perceptions on the subtler sphere open up. And one sees, therefore, vibrations. One recognizes vibrations in the form of colors, in the form of lights, and such phenomena. And if one practices meditation on a daily basis, very likely one will more and more have these experiences. And so Moshe acknowledges that this is part of the phenomenon of breath, but goes on to say this is not a curiosity to banter about. It's not something to chat about, because maybe we've all had the experience of experiencing something very powerful, very wonderful, very deep, and then going and telling someone about it. And just as soon as one has done so, perhaps one regretted it because it just couldn't be heard. Maybe the person makes a joke about it or looks at you funny, or even if that person is sincere and wants to understand, one very often feels that even in speaking about it, something that was very fine and existed beyond the plane of words now has been reduced to a comment, and that comment now just floats in the air. It could be misinterpreted. It reifies one's experience. One feels a certain unease about it. That isn't to say that words aren't potentially a channel in which to express finer perceptions and share them with the world. That is the domain of poets and in fact those who have brought back from the inner worlds some perfume of what was felt there. That is true. There is the possibility of evoking somehow that which is beyond words. But what Moshe is reminding us here is that we've got to take care, and that to speak too casually and especially to do so in a way that will be seen to promote one's prestige, as by making a claim of superior knowledge, a claim of occult wisdom, that is counterproductive and very often comes from an egoic motive. So there are problems that come with trying to articulate one's inner experience. It can be misunderstood. One can very much find oneself swept up in the current of vanity. These are all considerations. And so a certain ilm al-ishara is called for. That's a Sufi word which means the science of illusion. There's a way to evoke things felt and experienced that seeks to and sometimes succeeds in bypassing the pitfalls of incomprehension and mockery and self-aggrandizement and all of these disconnections. And that ilm al-ishara depends upon actually reading the moment, really intuiting in any situation how to connect with someone. And so the deeper connections require really the moments that allow for them. And other moments don't present that opportunity. One can still seek to connect through silence, through a gesture of goodwill, of prayerful attention toward anyone. But to speak of one's inner experience requires a certain moment, and we are very fortunate indeed if it's possible together along the way as companions, traveling together, practicing together. There are glimmerings of shared experience of what unfolds within. And very often this happens wordlessly, just in noticing together what is arising. It's confirmed in the glance, it's confirmed in an outpouring of one's energetic life. It's something that's communicated silently, much more naturally and much more vitally than it can be in words. Shall we close our eyes and turn within? Feel our 2 feet on the ground. Feel the touch of the fabric of your clothes wrapped around your limbs and trunk. And the finer touch of the air as it gently buffets your skin on your hands and your cheeks. And the still finer touch of the air as it travels down your windpipe and opens up your lungs and enters the bloodstream. inner touch of the air in all of your cells. But now as we breathe in, we're aware not only of breathing in oxygen, but also absorbing energy. Audible and inaudible vibrations course through the body. Visible and invisible light soaks into one's limbs and trunk. And as you gather in the quintessence of all that is indrawn into your life field, the breath of the breath, surging through the universe and converging. Draw this vitality into the cardiac plexus, the heart in the left breast. Arousing feeling in the chest, where there was before perhaps a certain numbness. Become aware of the beat of the heart. Look into the glow. Look into the radiance inside the chest. See how the more that you observe the radiance, the more that it radiates. You can perhaps feel the warmth and glow of this fountain spreading out through your limbs, most immediately the left arm, but also filling the whole chest. Moving down the right arm, extending down the two legs also, rising up through the neck into the head. All of the limbs were formed from the original organ in the embryo, which was the heart. And likewise, the heart's vibration pulses through the whole body, so that one feels these hands are the hands of the heart. These feet are the feet of the heart. The eyes are the eyes of the heart. The ears are the ears of the heart. The tongue is the tongue of the heart. But the field of the heart doesn't terminate at the boundary of the skin. It floods out. Just as sound doesn't end suddenly somewhere, it fades out. The heart sphere diffuses itself out into the atmosphere. And just as this presence, this field of presence, which extends from your qalb, emanates out, one might observe the presence of companions here whose own energetic presence is recognizable, just as when several raindrops fall in a pond and ripples expand, they overlap. And while the heart will most readily recognize kindred organs and their emanations, in fact, all of being emanates its presence. Everything around us resounds. And so we find ourselves in a space of resonance. The heart absorbs infusions from the elements, the plants, the animals, invisible beings, the whole surrounding atmosphere. And in turn, the heart is silently answering by means of its state. Now, can we retain this heightened degree of attentiveness and interconnectedness, but at the same time return to the evidence of our external senses? Feel the ground under your feet. Hear the sounds from the street outside. And when you're ready, let's open our eyes. And we can lift our hands to say the prayer Nayas. Beloved Lord, Almighty God, through the rays of the sun, through the waves of the air, through the all-pervading life in space, purify and revivify me, and I pray, heal my body, heart, and soul. Om.